Hey, welcome back everyone. This is Bill. I'm that prepper that lives in the Philippines. Today's topic, as you can see by the thumbnail, is a accumulation of crises that are happening right now to China and my personal beliefs on how that may affect everyone living here in the Philippines and probably globally as well. But the Philippines is my main concern because that's where I live. So, I haven't done one of these pieces in a while, and part of the reason is I think the China cyber media controllers really hit the negative on anything I say about China. I guess they got algorithms that go out there and look for this. But either way, I'm going to put this out there, and we'll see how it goes. And this is big news, so I want to talk about this. There's enough going on there now that I can make a content video for this topic. Now, keep in mind, this is my personal opinion on what I feel and what I think. Okay, so let's leave it at that. So a couple main problems right now. We'll talk about first the flooding, right? So we know that the typhoon hit almost 2 weeks ago on top of storm after storm, and China just got inundated with water. Now, typical Chinese fashion, in order to protect the major metropolitan areas, China willfully released this water into more provincial villages without warning. And China will never tell us the true cost of this as far as lives, but I guarantee you it's a lot, okay? And what they did was they deliberately opened their floodgates and, blew up levees on certain points to divert the floodwaters from going to these metro areas as much as they could in what they call floodwater mitigation, or some such name they put for it. They've basically admitted that they've done this on purpose, okay? Now they're saying they're going to give back money to folks that have lost, farming equipment, crops, farms with beef and pigs and chickens and homes and lives and businesses. They'll offer up to 50% of their paper money back to these folks who've lost their homes and their livelihood and their family members. Whether they ever do or not, who knows? And, I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of fake propaganda videos on their so-called rescue efforts. They're out there on Google if you want to look. It's a complete media sham, and it's a complete media blackout, right? So it's really interesting to see the fallout from all of this. The main problem I see, besides the loss of life, which is tragic and in my opinion deliberate, is where they flooded was major corn and rice agricultural areas. They have yet to determine what's the extent of the damage because it's still flooded after 2 weeks. But I'm telling you, they lost a lot of their future in rice and corn. And that's going to have an effect, okay? Not just locally there, but it's going to affect globally because there's already a shortage of cereal grains worldwide, as I've discussed in other videos regarding rice and wheat and so on. But besides the floods, which is major news in the last 2 weeks, China's been going through what's called a deflation period. Now, you would think that sounds good because if the opposite of inflation, which we know is bad, is deflation, that means goods are cheaper and they can be readily had at a better price. But the reality is China's growth has slowed down. Now, it's still growing, so they claim, around 2.5%. But it's such a big contrast to what it was that it's causing bubbles to pop, right? We know this with the real estate bubbles. The real estate housing market crashed. People can't sell their units at a discount. They can't even rent out a lot of their higher-end condos in major cities because of the exodus of foreigners, to be honest. So the real estate bubble has crashed in China, and it's been crashing for several years. And another large real estate development company is about to default on $199 billion worth of loans, which is just going to tank it even farther, right? So not only did that bubble just completely break, but you have to understand that real estate is probably 20% of the GDP for China, right? The investment in the real estate and the money made from that. So that's going to be a big hit on the economy. And the deflation may mean that things are cheaper, but no one's still ordering, right? China factories are shutting down, stores are shutting down. Now, they have a lot of stock, and I personally see this every day on Lazada and Shopee. I can get great deals on China-made products right now, incredible deals, because they're trying to get rid of whatever they can and make whatever they can. Now, keep in mind the U.S.-China economic struggles are going back and forth, and that's going to affect, right? So if China's not buying stuff from the U.S., there's an effect. And if U.S. is not buying stuff from China, there's an effect. So everything is hitting at once. Now, when we talk about the real estate buildings, if you Google anything on tofu buildings, basically they cheat when they build stuff. They don't, it's so corrupt. The engineering might look good on paper, but the reality is these buildings are literally sinking in the ground. They're leaning, they're falling apart. Half the stuff is fake, fake drainage, fake fire equipment. The buildings are now being called out for what they are. It's junk, okay? And that's also having a huge effect, right? Because people can't live in the houses that they bought, but they still have to pay. Now, it's very interesting. Now, let's keep in mind that the Chinese workforce is having a big struggle. I think it's 20% is the official unemployment rate. Now, there's a saying in China, and I won't try to say it in Chinese, but if you're over 35, it's impossible to find a job because employers don't think you'll be willing to work the long overtime hours for basically no pay. So the younger generation are giving up. They're just not working. They're staying home with their parents. They're trying to survive. And all of this together economically is bad news, okay? Now, if you look at this and you look at the recent conflicts that China's been having, obviously with the Philippines and the water cannon stuff that they've been going on over near the Ayungin Shoal, I'm sure I pronounced that incorrectly, but this aggression in the South China Sea or the Pacific Sea, depends on what side you look at it, is also ramping up, which is a bad sign. India engineers in Pakistan, which is part of their Belts and Roads initiative, basically they're putting an oil land transport line down from the western part of China through Pakistan down to the port. Now, their engineers at that port have been attacked by so-called terrorists, okay? Now, I'm going to read my notes here. It's the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Army, and this happened near the Gwadar port, which is pretty much owned by China because they built it and then Pakistan defaulted, so China owns operational control of this port, which we talked about in other videos. So you have a lot of things going on right now in China, and we'll hear more about the long-term effect of these floods probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how information gets out of China, because right now, again, all this stuff is being blocked and filtered by their media police. But how is this going to affect us here in the short and mid-term in the Philippines? All right, so the number one good thing, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is Chinese-made goods that were already prepared and sitting in their warehouses. Prices are coming down. They're cheap. You can get some good China-made products at a really good price. And if you're a prepper like I am, this is what you're looking for. Now, the other problem with all of this, which I just talked about, is the cereal grains. China was already hoarding and buying up as much as they can, and with the recent ban from India and then Pakistan not exporting, prices of rice will go up. The Philippine government already said that they're working out deals with Korea and some other Asian countries to supply rice to the Philippines, but the supply is drying up quick. And now with China taking this big hit, they're going to also be buying the same free market rice that's available, and that's going to drive the prices up. There's just no way around that. So prices for rice will continue to skyrocket, as well as other grains like wheat, corn, barley, etc. All these prices are going to be driven back up. Now, China has a lot of initiatives in the Philippines for construction projects, and I think these are going to take another hit. Now, we know that the embassy, that's the U.S. Embassy in Manila, lodged complaints about the Chinese company doing the reclamation efforts there in Manila Bay, and that project ground to a halt because of political issues, in my opinion. But other projects that China signed on and committed to will probably end up drying up as well. That's my personal opinion. Now, I'd like to hear you guys comment down below what you think about these things. You know, I understand that not everyone wants to talk bad about China, and I understand that this video will probably get a bazillion dislikes because of their bot army. But at the same time, I live here in the Philippines, and with the possibility of World War III happening end of this year or next year, in my opinion, all this pressure on China is just putting this in a faster track. China's going to have to do something, and I don't know what it's going to be honest with you. So this is just a quick rambling update. You know my style. I just have a 5-6 topic points I want to talk on. But I think if you guys aren't aware of some of these things, media blackout on the flooding is huge, but do some deep research. You'll see that not only were thousands of lives lost, I mean thousands of lives lost and property damage, but the grain stocks were all affected as well. So comment down below if you think that's going to be more devastating than what you're seeing right now. And otherwise, in other news, if you're a prepper and you have a little bit of budget, now's the time to buy cheap China-made prepping supplies, backpacks, whatever. There's just a ton of it on the market. It's a good time to get things, and you might need these things sooner than you think. So I'm going to leave today saying please hit that like button. Let me know that you like this content. Comment down below your feelings on these 5 talking points. And if you are not prepping and stacking food, again, you need to be. Because we're going to have a couple hard years coming up here, and if you're not prepared, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. And until next time, everyone, please